Good evening, everyone. Happy Tuesday and happy hour. Cheers. I'm glad to see your faces, and we're really glad you're here. Many of us have been listening to webinars all day with our NATS and ACDA and Chorus America and Barbershop Harmony Society chat this afternoon, and I'm really grateful for those organizations for providing us with some really great thoughts, some reminders of some things that we've been talking about already, as well as some new ideas that I'm really excited to think about, some of the new technology that was shared with us. If you missed today's webinar at 2 o'clock, it's still on the official NATS YouTube page, and it was fantastic. It was about 90 minutes and really informative. So check that out when you get a chance. This is our second to last of these for a little while. We're going to take a break for the summer, but we're really excited to have 4 amazing guests today to do short little TED Talk versions and to talk about some technology. First is Dr. Troy Robertson from Tarleton State University, and also with Choral, which you heard a little bit about last week. Dr. Robertson is going to talk about fearless singing, doing some distance learning things with our ensembles today. So thanks for being here, Troy.
You bet. I will go ahead and start sharing my screen. As Jeffrey mentioned, some of you have heard a little bit about Choral and what we're up to. Jeffrey asked me to talk about distance learning kind of generally, and I think by now, many of you are already starting to think in this direction. And so the title we came up with here is Fearless Singing, and I want to start by saying that I think most of us are looking at all the options. We're looking at distance learning, we're looking at a hybrid model, and we're looking at what if there's a miracle and we're all back to normal. That seems like a remote possibility, and we sort of all know how to do that, so I don't think we need to do all there. On the hybrid front, all that I think we're still kind of developing, and so trying to figure that out. So today I'm really going to focus on that plan A. If everything is still distance and we can't get together, what do we do? Those are the areas where I think we feel the least secure. And so that's what my colleagues and I in Choral have been focusing on. And by the way, when we say Choral, that can be you too. If that's something that interests you and you'd like to be a part, there are lots of ways to go ahead and jump in. So the first thing to say is not to be afraid, because the real issue here is familiarity. This is new. These are skills that we're going to have to learn. And so it's just going to take some time. And I'm going to start with a couple great quotations. I didn't know this one until a couple of years ago. There's no such thing as a difficult piece of music. A piece is either impossible or easy. The process whereby it migrates from one category to the other is known as practicing. And how much would we love for all of our singers to internalize that? But we need to internalize that as well. All of these new technology things are skills. It's going to take some practice. The good news is, for those of us who are in education, we've got the summer, and so we have some time. And the even better news is there are lots of folks who are trying to help us, and we're trying to help each other. So next one, I love this image, and so I just wanted to show it to you. All of us look at some of these great virtual choirs that we've seen, and we look at our colleagues who are doing such amazing things, and all we see is this end result. And in fact, there's a lot of struggle along the way. All of us have to work really hard to get to where we're going. So don't be discouraged. Just put in the time and you will get there. Next, I want to talk to you about some of the options. And by the way, this presentation, there's a whole bunch of information I'm spewing at you quickly. This whole presentation is going to be available on a link on the resources page that I've sent to Dr. Benson. So you'll be able to go back and peruse it at your leisure. There's also links to more Choral stuff on that page. And by the way, what does it mean, Choral stuff? We're just trying to function as a repository to either to have a central place for you to go to look for resources or direct you to other folks' resources. There are lots of people doing good work, and so trying to direct you out to where to find good info. So under distance learning, for synchronous options where we're all doing stuff at the same time, you've heard some of these ideas, I think, but I'm putting them into practice right now, and I can tell you some of them really do work quite well. I'm having a rehearsal in about 30 minutes. Leader unmuted, the singers can speak one at a time, and that emphasizes participation, process, logistics. The leader unmuted, but everybody else muted, and then you have lots of options. You can sing and play if you haven't tried that yet. I'm actually sitting, let's see if I don't have my keyboard on. I'm going to give you some keyboard in just a minute, but I've got my setup going right now. I actually sent Jeffrey a picture of this earlier today. I've got all my stuff right in front of me. I've got my computer directly in front of me, just my regular laptop. You're on a phone up here. That's how I'm seeing you up this way. And then I have actually I have a tablet off to the side. So it's like Star Trek over here with all these screens in front of me. And then I have right in front of me also my keyboard. And so I have all kinds of options to help the singers. I can show them lots of stuff as we're going. I can adapt if I need to. Right now that's slow, but I'm learning. You can play examples from your computer. Last week, my ensemble and I, and by the way, my ensemble, this is a community group of total amateurs for the most part, some folks who can't even read music. We were actually shocked at how effective it was to sing along with some audio. So example recordings of you. So one of the things I really enjoyed last week with this group is I put on the MIDI for their guide tracks, and then I just sort of sat back and relaxed, and I was able to think about what they needed, and I was able to adapt to the moment. So recordings either of MIDI or of you singing or whatever, you can kind of divide and conquer. I put there by dividing yourself into two, preparing a little bit ahead of time. Recordings of them. Another thing we're doing is they've done a rough cut of Mozart's Ave Verum Corpus, which was a good place to start for them. For some of them, it's actually a little bit of a challenge, even though it's very short and relatively simple and well known. But for some of my folks, it was a little bit of a challenge. And so being able to hear more experienced singers sing along was great for probably about 30 to 40% of them. For others of them, it's nice just to kind of get together and be able to sing while listening to other members of the ensemble, even though it is pre-recorded. Having some visuals up on the screen, like I'm doing right now, you can do all kinds of things with that. Guests, I'm going to have a summer camp I'm putting on this summer at my university. And one of the things that immediately occurred to me was, oh my gosh, I can have all my friends come from all over the country. And I don't have to pay them nearly as much. And maybe they'll even volunteer. So there's lots of opportunity for guests to come in. And then non-singing stuff. I think one of the main emphases for the fall is going to be maintaining our community, maintaining connection. And one of the ways that we can do that is through some fun stuff that may not be explicitly educational. All right. I think did I skip one? No. Okay. Asynchronous. And so this, you can see I've added software here because for the leader, it does require audio and video editing or one or the other, notation. Also, your singers, if you teach high school and college, are like excited and ready to do stuff for you. So I have folks who've done stuff on their own. Free options would be Audacity and GarageBand for audio. They're also all using apps like Acapella, things like that. And then I put these three categories of easy, medium, and hard because one of the early insights I had for asynchronous virtual ensemble type activity is folks really are, I think, apprehensive about the time commitment. And one of the key things to remember is that we can adjust our time commitment to the goals that we have in mind. And so I put on here easy, medium, and hard options. An easy option would be just to do audio only. And so, for example, with something like Ave Verum Corpus that's homophonic and there's a clear onset that they can nail every time, you're going to have a very easy time putting that together. You could probably put together a scratch track in just a few minutes, literally just a few minutes after you get used to doing some mixing and mastering. And synchronizing the files, bringing their files together is really the biggest job. And then you can just add some fade in, fade out if you want to make it a little smoother. On the medium level of time investment, you can add some video. Video is actually pretty easy as well if they're doing something relatively simple. If they're doing a small chunk, it's not too hard. Balancing the singers a little bit more time invested, but you have folks not only singing louder and quieter, but also different distances, different recording equipment, all kinds of things like that. So a little bit of balance work can help account for some of the technological challenges. Adding stereo effects, so that just means putting singers in stereo positions, which is a pretty easy thing to do and relatively fast. Adding a little bit of reverb, you want to go crazy with reverb, but adding a little bit of it can help kind of fill out the sound and make them feel better about what they've done. Adding filters such as de-essers, noise gates, so that there's not a bunch of noise when they're not singing, some of that kind of stuff. And then we get into more difficult tasks. So automating the volume, adding reverb and really, really trying to get the right reverb going, adding those filters and really adjusting them, adding video and video effects. So that's things like having somebody zoom into frame when they're singing a solo or move around the page, whatever. That kind of stuff is much more intense. Titles is relatively easy. I think some of us have done things like, home video or home pictures shows on a video editor. And so that's pretty easy. Images and then B-roll is a phrase you might not be familiar with, but just video of something. So for example, here in Stephenville, Texas, we have a beautiful greenway with a river. And so that's a nice thing to sort of show as either an intro or an outro. We have the university, of course, where I work. And then something that hadn't occurred to me until I saw a colleague of mine do this incredible video with her 6th and 7th graders. Her video actually for the end of the year functions as powerful advocacy because it shows the techniques that she's been using in her classroom as she goes through everything. And so that's time consuming and she spent a lot of time, but boy, that is powerful, probably even more powerful than putting them up on the stage in front of the PTA or something like that. And then, you know, beyond fearless, I think we were talking before we started, a couple of us feel like, well, we don't want to do something totally new and then never use it again. It's actually, I think, really exciting that many of these techniques hopefully will bring right back into the classroom. We won't have to worry about throwing them away. We'll have developed new things that we can use in the future. And so under paradigm shift and recovery, you know, sharing time and resources. We're connected in ways we haven't been before. Here I am talking to you in California from the middle of the state of Texas. There aren't like cows outside, but I'm far away. And so that's exciting. You know, sharing methods and materials. We've created these new resources, these new databases. I don't see that ending once we go back to face-to-face. Now we're going to be connected more fully than we have been in the past. And that's exciting as well. We're going to have to shift to a little bit less repertoire for the time being, but that means we can emphasize things that are important to us, like community, participation, having fun with music. I hope that you believe that fun is part of your music making. And so that'll be part of the shift as well. Feedback and assessment, there are tremendous opportunities for individual and personalized feedback. And I think that will, again, continue after we get back together. We're going to have new options and we're going to be more comfortable with those options. For myself, I always knew that I could do this. I just never really took the time to learn and to develop a system. Well, now I have. And so I'll take that back with me into the classroom. And then on the advocacy front, I've already mentioned just new tools of video and audio that can stretch beyond the concert night. You know, we can take those same performances and hopefully reach out in the community in brand new ways. My last slide here is how to get involved. Again, you can get this presentation via the links on the resource page that Dr. Benson is going to link later on, or going to upload later on. And we're hoping that not only will we have these distance learning options for you, but we're also in the middle of developing some methods resources, some safety resources so that we can pass along resources to each other. We're developing and actually have right now some music files that you can use, training, all these kinds of things. So I'm actually not fearful so much as I am actually hopeful that we're going to expand what we can do and who we can serve. And that's
awesome. Thank you, Troy. Yeah, thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you all so much for having me.
Troy has to leave to go to a rehearsal, in just a virtual rehearsal, I guess. But, before he goes, I just would love to say, if you haven't already seen Choramore and some of the things that they're doing, it's basically, he's providing, well, and not just he, but this group of choral people are providing free resources to all of us. You know, we heard today some of these apps that are going to cost us money and some of the training that's going to cost us money. But what I'm loving about what Choramore and Troy is doing is that they're providing these resources to us for free. And the tracks of the Ave Verum Corpus that you've already recorded virtually, you're actually providing people with the audio tracks of sort of to help to practice, so that you can get a practice
right now.
time. Right. Like if you wanted to try to learn Logic, Troy could give you the practice tracks of, like, one of them is me singing, one of them is Kristina singing, and you can sort of figure out how to line them up yourself this summer, so that if you wind up doing your own virtual choir this fall, you would have already done some practicing yourself. So definitely think about signing up for his weekly newsletter. You're sending that weekly newsletter out on Sunday evenings, right, Troy?
On Sunday evenings, there's a weekly meeting on Mondays as kind of a, let's all get together and chat about some topics. I do send out an agenda, but it's for whatever the membership cares about. There's about 550 members now. And it's been an amazing thing to meet on Mondays, because we have some incredibly talented and smart musicians who take part.
And Troy, tell us really fast before you go, when will your website be live?
The website is in process. It's just me and one of my friends, and so we're trying to put it together on the cheap, and so it's taking a little bit longer than expected, maybe another week or so, and then we'll have some of those assets up there. But those are all available right now to be shared via Google Drive And of course, we're on Facebook and Twitter.
Perfect. Yeah, and folks are asking if you want to sign up for the weekly newsletter. He sends out just one email a week, and then Monday mornings is the weekly meeting. If you wanted to log into Zoom at 9 a.m. Mondays, our time in Pacific, you can join sort of the conversation and attend some of the sessions. And if they want to do that, Troy, how do they sign up for Coromore?
You can go to the Facebook page and grab the sign up there. It's the button at the top of the page. You can also, when you get to the newsletter, there are links for all of the meetings, and we have performance opportunities as well. We're doing Pierce Hall's Lay a Garland. We're doing Bat and Sing Joyfully. And because these are public domain, all of those files will actually help us to generate resources to give away, just like Mozart's Ave Verum Corpus did.
Perfect. Yeah, and the last thing I'll say is I've now sung in 2 of those virtual choirs as a singer because I wanted to understand what my students would need to do, and I've learned a lot just sort of participating in that. And I think the Bat and Sing Joyfully, if anybody wants to be a singer in that, I think that is not due till June 1st.
Yeah, next Monday, and so we got some time. Yeah, and there'll be many more. We're going to do more stuff. So.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Troy.
You bet. Thanks, everybody. Sorry I have to run.
Next, we move to Kristina Nakagawa from the San Jose Bay Area. And Kristina is going to chat with us a little bit about the community building that she's been doing with her groups. Thanks for being here, Kristina.
Thank you, Jeffrey, and thank you all for being here. I love that I get to follow Troy because a lot of things that he sort of briefly mentioned, I'm going to go a little bit more in depth on. So let me get sharing here. So originally I'd called this presentation Reaching Beyond, Putting the Community Back in Your Choir. But after really working with the material and looking at what I wanted to talk to you about today, I realized that that wasn't the case anymore. That's another presentation for when life is normal again. So this is instead, don't call it a choir. We are a community of singers. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what's been going on for my ensemble. I have a community choir. It's auditioned about 50 singers here in San Jose. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the present and what we've been doing, and then also what we're looking for in the future. And I'm going to use the word community a lot. And there's sort of the lowercase c of like my internal community, and then uppercase C of the greater community at large, whatever that means for you. So my first goal during this time when we had to basically close down in March was to foster ownership and belonging during this time of isolation. And the first thing that I had to do with that was really let go of my ego and share the load. As teacher conductors, we are so used to being up front. That is where we are trained to be. That is where we are comfortable. But during this time, we have to really take a step back and make room at the head table for more input and more shareholders, I guess. And realize that we might not be the expert in the room anymore, and that's okay. And it's a time and an opportunity for your own mental health to, ask for help, and that's perfectly all right. So the second thing that I did was I surveyed my stakeholders to address their needs. For me, my stakeholders were my singers. For you, it might be your admin, your board, your singers, their family, their friends, your greater community, whatever that might mean for you personally. And so here's the survey that we sent out. And it was simple 3 questions, nothing too crazy. Question 1, until we can meet again in person, I would prefer our rehearsal time to be filled with, and these were the options: fully focusing on music, a balance of music and community, or no music whatsoever, because I recognize that people that might be stressful. Question 2, I would appreciate having info about vocal technique, videos of great choirs, or videos of our organization conductors running through pieces. Question 3 was open-ended. And I said, please list any additional ideas you might have for our time together while we have to participate remotely. And this for me was the thing that took it over the edge, because everyone was so creative. And personally, it was a stressful time for me as well. And so I was really glad that question 1 there were only like 1 or 2 people that said they just wanted in-depth music study and practice. Most people wanted a mixture of music and community building, or they really just needed the community. So these are the things that we've done since March 18th, which was our last in-person time, I guess. We had sectionals using breakout rooms on Zoom run by our section leaders when we thought we were still going to be able to have a concert this coming weekend. We did a crash course in Takadimi. We did some sight singing. There was a team of singers that really wanted to do virtual choir. And in March, I was not there yet. And so I said to them, you go, you do it, you report back on what you find out. And they took some time and they explored this composition called Here I Am, written by Karen Siegel, that is aleatoric, and she wrote it specifically to be performed on Zoom. And so there's a link there, and I'll send this out to Jeffrey afterward. One of the most exciting things that we did for me was chatting with a composer. We're planning on doing on our next concert, whenever that is, a brand new work by a Venezuelan composer, and we got to talk to him and hear about his process and his experience of writing the piece and what it meant to him. We did some pub trivia. We played Name That Tune with one of our singers who's a phenomenal pianist and can play anything. We did some online games. We shared silly viral videos, and then some things that we did in real life that we wanted to continue. We still sang happy birthday every week to those who were celebrating, embracing the lag and all of the horror. I have recordings of each one so that eventually someday I can put them up and we can laugh about it. And then we still took time to share celebrations and support each other with difficulties. I have a number of people who are touched by the virus. One singer had to fly to Indiana to take care of his brother's family while his brother was in the ICU. So that was a real important thing for us as well. So what we have gained, and this is a picture of our pub trivia night, is time to reflect and appreciate. The choir's been in existence for 7 years now, and last week we met and I asked them, I said, what are you most proud of in this year? And some things were before we had closed and some things were when we went virtual, but really gave us a strong sense of gratitude for what we have and what we've gotten to build together. We also foster deeper personal relationships and stronger friendships because we only rehearse for 2 hours a week usually, and there's not much time for socializing. And so this sort of online discussion gave us a lot of opportunity for that as well. And now I really feel like we are not just a choir, we are a community of singers. So looking forward into the immediate future. And Troy actually mentioned some of these scenarios as well, so I'm glad to see that ours line up. Scenario 1, we remain 100% virtual. We maintain the community we've built and continue meeting online. And all of these ideas that I've listed here came directly from the singers. They want to do some virtual choir. They want to do some singing telegrams where we do a really good virtual choir recording of Happy Birthday or the national anthem and have those available for people to share with family and friends. Maybe some online exchanges with other musical organizations, possibly even an international choir if we can get the time zones to match up. More chatting with composers. And then they asked for these skill building and master classes, IPA and diction. I have one singer who is crazy about dental T's, and he is convinced that during this time together, we can get everybody to sing the dental T properly. We want to do some vocal pedagogy, have vocologists come on and talk about the physics of singing and the actual biology of it. And then third, some music theory. I had one singer who said, I really want to know what DS and DC actually mean, and we have some time, so can someone explain that to me? So we'll do a session on codas or something like that. So more ideas of what could happen if we're allowed to sing a little bit together. We could have some hybrid rehearsal meetings, half in person, half at home, and then swapping, maybe some smaller living room ensembles, and then maybe even take rehearsals and performances outside, even just for a few pieces. We don't have to sing for 2 hours. We could meet and sing for 15 minutes and feel that satisfaction, and then also still have the time online for the skill building and the other things. And then, you know, pipe dream, full regular rehearsals, however, understanding that those public performances will probably be a challenge for some time. So then I want to talk to you a little bit about the long-term future, which was originally what my presentation was going to be about, of, you know, what I do with my community and the internal and external. But thinking about the internal community that we've now really made so much more beautiful than it was before, is making sure that we take what we did online into the real world, budget extra time for the singers to connect. Do things like secret singers, which we've done before, and that doesn't have to be at the holidays. Singers love getting little notes from each other on their chairs, little small gifts, those sorts of things. Singer buddies, which I'm sure something a lot of you do. You might pair a freshman with a senior, a sixth grader with an eighth grader. For me, it would be an incoming singer who's new to the group with someone who's been with us for a couple years. And then the idea of incorporating social section leaders. You know, we have our section leaders who are in charge of the musical health of our sections and the notes and rhythms and those sorts of things, but maybe having someone else in the section who's in charge of the emotional and social health of their section as well. So these are some ideas for involving your external community, the uppercase C. In the future, you can even modify some of these things to be virtual as well. So the first thing is collaborations. You can join with another choir or instrumental ensemble to perform a major work. My ensemble is not big enough to do a major work, but we've combined with some groups to do some, and that's been really rewarding. Share a concert. If you have not shared a concert before, I cannot recommend it highly enough. Not only does it help you gain exposure to new audience members, but also you only have to prepare like half the music. Sing something together, get the singers working together, and broaden your internal community even more. And then supporting a cause. So when you're thinking of pairing with an organization, it doesn't have to be a musical organization. And I heard this at the last time ACDA was in Pasadena. When you can combine your passion with the thing that breaks your heart, then you have found your calling. That was Katie Richards, the music wellness director from the Urban Voices Project. And it struck me to the core. And that very following season, we did a homeless outreach concert that was free and open to the public. We didn't take any tickets. We took donations, and we took donations of new socks, and raised some money for some really wonderful organizations, and also did service for those organizations as well. We worked in the soup kitchens and got to know the people that they were benefiting. And then scholarships and sponsorships is something that I know many of you have heard me talk a lot about. My organization has given a lot of money to high school, all state and regional honor choir students, and some other gifts as well. But if you're interested in doing something like this, the first thing you need to do is just ask your local teachers what they need. It could be that they need money. They might need money for trips or uniforms or instruments. But it could also be that they just need the gift of time. They might need volunteers. They might need chaperones. They might just want to show their students the value of lifelong singing, that there are so many opportunities for giving. Then once you've gotten those needs back, you figure out your budget. Doesn't have to be extravagant. And the last thing to do is show and tell what you've done. Talk about what you've done. That shows your community how much you're doing and how much you want to support the people around you. And then these are just some additional ideas and things that my organization has done. I know that my time is almost up, so I'm not going to go through these too much, but we do a summer conducting lab where student conductors get to work in front of a real ensemble, and then the conductors get feedback. We've worked with some emerging composers, composition students from universities, and sung their pieces. Sometimes it ends up being that we do it in a concert. And then a guest workshop. If there's somebody that you hear is coming into town, approach them about, would you be willing to do a workshop for this group of schools, or this group of community choirs, or this group of church choirs, and invite everybody to participate. So I want you to remember, we don't conduct choirs. We create communities. It's what we do best. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kristina. That's fantastic. And for those of you asking about the materials, all of this will be posted. Kristina's slides, Troy's slides, everybody's slides will be posted on our website by Friday, as well as the recording of this webinar. So you'll have access to all of these materials. Fabulous, Kristina, thank you. Lori Marie Rios is next to talk about growth mindset. And Lori Marie, if you don't know her, I'm sad for you that you don't know her. Lori Marie is talking to us today about growth mindset. Lori Marie, take it away. Lori Marie, you are muted. Let me see if I can unmute you.
Mute myself. Got it. Good evening, everybody, and hello. It really is wonderful to be here with you, and I'm so thankful that Dr. Jeffrey Benson asked me to participate in this in my very first webinar TED Talk. When I sat down to create my presentation, I pondered about the topic. Jeffrey and I threw out a few thoughts, but I wanted to do something that was somewhat new to me. I have Molly Peters to thank for this. About 5 or 6 years ago, she and I were talking about classroom management, and she introduced me onto this idea of fixed and growth mindset. Since then, I've spent quite a lot of time studying the topic. However, I am not an expert, nor am I a psychologist, which causes me some anxiety considering there's a psychologist following me on this TED Talk today. So I see my job is to encourage you maybe to open your mind to some new ideas, possibly make you laugh and rethink how this subject could change the person you are, the person you want to be, and the educator your students deserve as we learn to navigate through new teaching adventures in this time of vast change. So I present to you growth mindset while living during fixed mindset times. Now, fixed mindset is one thing, and being fixed is another. Our fixed time was determined for the spring for us. Let me take you back for you. For many of us attending the Salt Lake City Western Division Conference the first week of March, we were hugging and kissing and greeting as if there was nothing going on. Then we came home. We taught for a week, and then on Monday, March 16th, we were told that we could not leave our homes, that schools were closed, and that going to the market that week felt like we were walking into an apocalyptic time. We were instructed to wear masks, wear gloves, and then for me, the 23rd of March, we started teaching on this thing called Zoom. For many of us, the idea of teaching our ensemble classes on Zoom was so overwhelming that all I could do was sit in a fixed position. Then the last week of March, I finally met with my ensembles, and I saw this. And this is not what I expected. Jeffrey, is there any way that you can go in and see why this is not moving forward?
Unfortunately, I can't.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't see. I can see your screen, but I can't actually fix the clicker.
All right. Can we stop share and I'll just go to the regular document?
It should, yeah. You're not sharing now, so see if that.
Okay. Ah, it just popped up.
You can start, if you want to try to start your share again, that might work.
Okay, hold on. Let's try it one more time, okay, everybody? Thank you for your patience.
We're pretty sure this has happened to most of us in our Zoom rehearsals at some point this spring. So we're all good.
I guess the 6 hours of practicing this today. Okay, so we've seen that, yes?
Yes.
Okay, it's a new share. I'm gonna push play. I got cool effects. So I'll start again with the last week of March. I finally met my ensembles, and this is what I saw. Students being discouraged, not only about my class, but about every aspect of their lives. Although I tried to be empathetic, I decided that I would have them record a couple songs individually, send them to me, and I too would do some kind of online choir presentation on YouTube. And after I received only 8 students' voice part recordings, I knew that I had to approach choir differently for the next 10 weeks. It started me on a fantastic journey with my students this semester. In today's session, we will cover what are the major ideas behind fixed mindset and growth mindset? Where have you, we, and I been sitting while living in the pandemic, fixed or growth? And how do we, I and you, make changes for ourselves, others, and for our student singers? Growth mindset, fixed mindset ideas started with Carol Dweck. She is the Lewis and Virginia Eaton Professor of Psychology at Stanford University. And she has a fabulous book called Mindset. And I strongly recommend it, where her and her team developed these ideas regarding fixed mindset and growth mindset. So we begin. A fixed mindset belief. They believe that skills and intelligence are set, and you either have them or you don't. They also believe that you are not in control of your abilities, that skills are born, and that you can't learn and grow. Focus on performance. They focus on performance and not looking bad. Oh.
Lori Marie, maybe if you pull it out of play mode and just just click on each slide individually along the side, that may fix the problem.
This is what happened when we warmed up too. How do I get back out of stop share? It won't let me. Thank you.
So if you share again,
everybody.
If you share again and then just click on each individual slide instead of going into play mode, I think there must be a glitch.
Yeah. So right now you can't see a thing. So let me get there again. I apologize, everybody. Okay, we're going to do it this way. So Carol Dweck says about fixed mindset that students believe their basic abilities, their intelligence, their talents, and are just fixed traits. They have a certain amount of that's that, and then their goal becomes to look smart all the time and never look dumb. A fixed mindset tend to think this way. They avoid challenges. They give up easily. They ignore feedback. They're threatened by the success of others. They feel the need to constantly prove yourself. They avoid challenges and they see effort as pointless. So, can you think of a time over the past 10 weeks where you felt any of these statements? I'll let you ponder on that. I have. Watching my friends and colleagues be successful with virtual choirs because they knew how to use Logic Pro or some other form of distant learning. I gave up quickly on that one. My words were, I have just figured out how to do Zoom. There is no way that I am learning something else on this damn computer. Sound familiar? So, I don't know how many of you felt like this the first time you met with your students. The Zoom routine, where you either have black spots, black squares, or you have students who look like this. This is a real picture of one of my students and chamber singers, Leah. And what I love about what she said in contrast to mindsets, because she was a student of Molly Peters, so she has already been introduced to mindsets. She writes, to close the gap between your ideal self and your real self. Today, I will settle. Tomorrow, I will change. Which I think is quite powerful coming from this student. What did your Zoom class look like the first time? Some students were their jovial selves, but most felt overwhelmed. A fixed mindset. You can't earn or develop to your full potential. This is my student, Erin. It took her a lot longer to get on the growth mindset idea, but she finally did it, and I was very proud. Growth mindset belief. Growth mindset people believe that skills and intelligence are grown and developed. Growth mindset tend to embrace challenges, persist in the face of setbacks, value effort, seek out and learn from feedback, inspired by the success of others. How many people can identify with any of these statements over the past 10 weeks? If you can, then you grew and learned. And my guess is that when we made shifts in our thoughts, then our classrooms became more productive and positive. The growth mindset propels you forward. It enhances creativity. It pushes you to overcome circumstances. It increases your energy level, inspires you to solve problems, and it builds teamwork. So what kind of mindset do you have? Are you aware of colleagues and students who live in a fixed mindset way? I do. What kind of mindset do you have? I'm either good at it or I'm not. When I'm frustrated, I give up. Tell me I'm smart. If you succeed, I feel ashamed. My abilities determine everything. My identity. People with fixed mindsets believe that they cannot change. I find this one very interesting in that many of us can get very lost in what we do. And we have an opportunity through the pandemic to not get lost in everything, so that what we do becomes our identity. Side note. What kind of mindset do you have? A growth mindset. I can learn anything I want to. When I'm frustrated, I persevere. When I fail, I learn. If you succeed, I'm inspired. Mindset leads to success. Thrive on challenges. Do you find yourself mostly a growth mindset person? I am. And people who know me know that I'm a growth mindset gal. However, over this time of being sequestered and teaching online, I have found myself in a fixed mindset. I also have been taking more naps and eating horribly. However, my students have helped me. The power of growth mindset. In a growth mindset, I believe you can develop any ability through dedication and hard work. Because of this belief, I have a desire to learn. This enables myself to embrace challenges and persevere when setbacks invariably arise during the learning process. So at the end of the semester, this is what the 3 students looked like. How did we get there? I started class with practical questions you can use to reverse fixed mindset. We attacked almost all of these questions. Some of them were verbal, some of them were texted answers, some of them actually even did email. I talked to my student about the questions. It brought us a new life. Students wanted to talk about themselves. They wanted to share with each other as colleagues. They wanted to be a community together on Zoom. We also were able to positively and critically talk about our festival performances prior to the pandemic. And what can we learn from those performances that will help us in the fall? We invited several colleagues who helped us gain more knowledge and information. And one of them said, summating, of course, "Your students are so nice and productive. Love them." And this person happens to be sitting in this Zoom webinar, so thank you. You see, in closing, my wish for you is that you have found some information helpful so that when you go back to your classrooms, when you go back to your choir rehearsals, whatever format that may be, your family, your friends, you have the ability to move forward, that you strive to make changes and strive to motivate others to make changes, which is what we do in the choral classroom every day. So when we do come together, all of us will be better when we come out of the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori Marie. And lastly today, we have Dr. Laura Natta. Laura is a psychotherapist and clinical psychologist who's a wonderful alto and singer as well. And she's going to talk with us just for a few minutes here, just about our own mental health during this time. And, you know, it's always one of those things that it's hard for us to inspire others if we're not inspired and taking care of ourselves, of course. So Dr. Natta, thanks for being here today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Can everybody hear me? Can you just wave? Are you hearing me? Yes, fabulous. Okay. So we have taken a lot of different surveys in the last 3 months. And even though everybody's experience during the COVID pandemic is different, and that's one of the really difficult things about their experience in emotional regulation during COVID is that it's very difficult to find somebody that has the exact same experience as you do. But the most common experiences that people report are loneliness, difficulty sleeping, anxiety, stress and worry, sadness, depression and shame, and irritability and anger. The problem with the issues that we're seeing in mental health is the scope of the issues is vast, right? Everyone's experience is different. It's a novel set of circumstances that we are not familiar with. They tend to be pervasive and affect every part of our lives. There's uncertainty and unpredictability that we all know that we don't deal well with as Americans, but human beings in general. They're not in our control, and this is a really important one. There's no end point. The research shows that if we have an endpoint, we're more likely to be resilient than if there's no endpoint or if the endpoint keeps changing. And in this particular case, we've gotten a couple of different endpoints and they keep getting passed down, right? And no access to usual supports that we would normally engage in. So what this results in is like a chronic stress situation where you have a constant sympathetic nervous system engagement, like a trauma response, almost like if Jeffrey came at me with a gun or something, and I put up my hands to fight him, which would be ridiculous because there would be a gun, and because he's in San Jose and I'm in San Francisco on these screens. But if I were ready to fight somebody, that is a fight or flight system. When we are in a chronic stress situation, and there's a persistent fight or flight going on, what happens is we start secreting stress hormones, including cortisol, and that impacts everything. It impacts our physical well-being. It impacts the brain structures that are involved in executive functioning, memory, emotional regulation, everything. People feel foggy. They talk about feeling ineffective, and it can lead to a wide range of mental health issues if you don't take care of yourself. And you guys, unlike many of my patients, educators and people who deal with students, you all were stressed before COVID. And a lot of you were overworked before COVID. And so now this is just sort of added on to it. And hearing a lot of my patients talking about burnout experiences and mental health issues that they didn't have prior to the pandemic. I want to point a couple of things out about my little list here. It's sort of interesting to me that the top two things that people were reporting feeling were loneliness and difficulty sleeping. And those are not actual emotions, right? They're states. And so I'm going to address them first because they actually have quite a bearing on the rest of our emotional and mental makeup. Loneliness is really actually quite destructive. It's not being alone that's destructive. It's the thought, it's the feeling of being lonely, like you're separated. And you certainly don't need to be alone to be lonely, right? It increases stress, it worsens our mood, it decreases the amount of sleep and the quality of sleep. It decreases our ability to concentrate. And because you can be lonely, even if you're not alone, packing your day full of Zoom meetings doesn't necessarily help this. And for many people, their home is not a safe or a happy space, right? So what we know about, what research tells us about loneliness is that doing things with a buddy helps. Well, that's really difficult when you're Zooming. But this is both for you and for your students, I would think. One person who holds you accountable to a routine or who is going to do exercise with you or something like that, that alone can reduce loneliness significantly. We talk a lot, we see a lot online about groups, activity groups, support groups, therapy groups, but here's the thing about it. Part of what we enjoyed, I did not enjoy my commute. I'll give you an example. I did not enjoy my hour commute to work. However, every day there was something new. Not everybody drove the same way every day. I got rerouted, right? It's constant stimulation. Well, we don't have that. And so one thing that happens when we don't have appropriate stimulation, right, is that we are not building new neural pathways. So we get to feel very dull, and you're not thinking the most efficiently that you can. So it's really important, rather than just doing something, do something with new learning. And I cannot stress to you how important that is. We tend to do things that we enjoy. And because we enjoy them, and I'm not saying don't do enjoyable activities, right? But it's really important also to do something that's very new. So if you're going to learn something or try and learn a new language, you could learn a new instrument. You could, any kind of new learning is really important. And then seeking regular social support and connection, with quality being the most important as opposed to quantity and the amount of Zooming that one person does in a day. Difficulty sleeping is another thing that's pervasive. It affects our mood and all aspects of our cognition. And I know I hear this from people just on a social level, as well as professionally. And there are lots of things you can do. I think pretty much all on the internet you can read about sleep hygiene and so forth. But there are a couple of things that I want to point out. One is that people's alcohol intake has risen by 75% during the pandemic. And so limiting alcohol and caffeine right before bed is sort of important, because what happens is you drink right before bed, and a lot of people drink to sleep. Don't do that, because what happens is your blood sugar in the middle of the night drops and you wake up and you can't get back to sleep. And that's actually the way the problem starts. So try not to do that. There are lots of other options if you need outside sleep help that are holistic, that are not actual medications. Avoid screens before bed. That is not a fallacy, that is true. That's not necessarily TV screens, but certainly any kind of pixelated tablets, laptops, that kind of thing. Avoid news media and social media right before bed. We're going to talk about news media and social media in a minute, and you'll see why I say that. Get exercise, and this is something that people don't say enough about. Sunlight is really important. We have all been afraid and we've stayed inside. It's important to get outside and get sunlight. Sunlight gives us vitamin D. Vitamin D stops depression. It's a good way to remember that. And don't take naps. If you're having problems sleeping, power through it for the day, and eventually your body will tire out and you'll go to sleep. But if you take a nap, you reduce your sleep bank. The other thing is, don't make a huge deal if you can't sleep. Catastrophic thinking often keeps us awake. And what happens is it changes our relation to sleep, as opposed to thinking of sleep of like, oh, I can go to bed now, right? You think, oh no, here's another night. I'm not going to be able to sleep and I'll be up all night, right? And that doesn't actually help. If you do need help in sleep, there are different online programs that you can get in app form to see if you can change your relationship with sleep on your own. One example would be Googling CBT for insomnia, and there are different apps for that. But also there are people who actually specialize in something called behavioral sleep medicine. They're sleep specialists. They can help you if you have insomnia. We're hearing from a lot of people anxiety, stress, and worry. And these are different categories, right? I've lumped them all together because honestly, this talk should be like 2 hours, but I'm doing the 12-minute version. So anxiety, stress is like too much stuff going on, right? Worry is a different type of thing. And anxiety is really worry without a stimulus. If you have something that you're scared of, for instance, COVID, and you are scared of it, that is not anxiety. Anxiety is when it persists in absence of that stimulus, right? So one thing we can all do to reduce anxiety is to limit our media exposure, because what happens is this raises our stress level. It's the incoming of negative information. Our stress level goes up and we get in a state of constant vigilance, much like you see with people who have PTSD. One way to combat that, and I'm doing the sort of short, down and dirty, here are some things that you can maybe try version, but only pick 1 or 2 trusted sources. Limit the amount of time you look at media. And here's the key. Don't do it throughout the day. Pick like 1 or 2 times and stick to them. You're going to hear me talk about routine over and over and over again today, and this is no different. If I would suggest you do it around lunchtime, and this is why, if you do it in the morning and it raises your stress level, you're sort of messed up for the whole day. If you do it at night, it will hurt your sleep. So doing it sort of in the middle of the day, and we'll talk about scheduled worry in a minute. The other thing is to really try and be aware of and change your outlook from a problem-solving outlook, from a panic mode outlook rather, to a problem-solving outlook. So like, do the recommended precautions, wear a mask, go buy groceries, wash your hands all the time, don't touch your face, but don't do more. Don't hoard and go into a panic mode. Don't buy all the chicken and the toilet paper, because that not only does that limit everybody else's chicken and toilet paper, right? But it's a different thought process and it raises your anxiety level. It's important that to control anxiety for COVID especially, very much like the research that has gone on around controlling anxiety around war, if you think of this as a collective process, we're all doing this together and people are experiencing the same sort of thing as I am, as opposed to all these people are threats. It's very easy to get caught up in that, so we can watch that too. The other thing that you can do to help is schedule worry time. We use this for people who have more of a worrying disorder, like a generalized anxiety type of thing, where we schedule them time periods, worry once or twice per day. So, and it's a constant conscious process of saying, I'm not going to worry about this now, I'm going to worry about this at noon when I do that. So you schedule 1 or 2 times a day for approximately 20 minutes. Again, outdoor activity, physical exercise helps everything, including anxiety, stress, and worry. And then again, get into a routine and balance activities, right? Everything should be scheduled. It's really easy not to do things when you don't have a routine. And so the research on this has shown that routine is one of the most important things you can do for your mental health. I have also seen a lot of irritability, anger, depression, and shame, and that's a huge category, by the way. And usually it's broken down into several different categories, but just because of time, I put them all together. It's really easy to get irritable, right? Anger, depression, grief, loss. I was supposed to go to Greece this summer. I didn't get to go. You know, I have people who were supposed to take their licensing exam. They can't now for a whole other year. And you all know this because you're all feeling all this sort of change going on, and it can make you mad. Again, take scheduled breaks from activities, and that includes Zoom rooms. We don't have much research on Zoom. We love Zoom because it keeps us connected, but it takes way more neurons to connect via teleconference than it does in person, as you guys know, because you're dealing with students all the time. But take breaks from people you live with too. Again, get outside, get some exercise, take a break. If you have to stay in the house, go into another room, put on headphones, something. Take care to manage your stress, anxiety, and worry before it gets to anger. And take time to play. That's one thing that we have a lot of research on, is that time to do nothing and play is really as important as anything we've talked about here. We can't live in all COVID all the time. And that's what we're tending to do because very much like your field, my field has also changed completely. And so we're all trying to do this. And the tendency is to just think, okay, I always have something to do. What am I going to do next? You got to take some time to not do things. Show a little compassion for others and yourself. This is not a competition. I had somebody say to me very recently, they were upset, and they said, I really shouldn't be upset because other people have it much worse. Language matters, and downplaying your existence will just have it build. And so remember, it's not a competition. Constant Facebook and social media. Let me tell you, I have a friend named Bobby, and Bobby, for one reason or another, has really flourished during this period. He makes gourmet meals every day, and he has auditions to his house that he's building, and he's learning a language and an instrument. He's learning the piano and how to tap dance. And you look, and I'm just so tired even watching him on Facebook. And what we tend to do, and this is where the bullying literature comes out of, is we compare ourselves to things that we see on Facebook. So really be aware that that's something that happens, and it happens unconsciously. It's not a conscious effort. Remember that it's okay to feel loss and grief. You know, you can experience gratitude and grief in the exact same minute. They can exist in the same space. So just because you're allowing yourself to really feel grief over something, what that'll do is that'll be able to sort of move through it, as opposed to turning it internally or lashing out at somebody. Helping others is an interesting one. At first, when we first started this pandemic, everybody was helping everybody. Everybody was threatening to deliver groceries, and we had inclusive language, and we were all in this together, and this has dissipated. And if you look at the language that you see now on social media and in the media, you'll see a difference in the language. Remember that helping others not only helps others, but it also helps with hormone secretion that promotes positive emotions, okay? And the last thing on this particular segment I want to talk about is behavioral activation, which is tricking your brain to secrete dopamine every 2 hours. If you're experiencing a low-level depression, sort of a blue, I'm just sort of blue, you can sort of trick your brain. And the way to do that is you make a list of your sort of top things that bring you this much joy. Not Tesla joy, not winning the lottery joy, like apoplectic goat video joy, right? Or a square of chocolate, or a song that makes you smile, right? And you do one of those things every 1.5 hours to 2 hours, and your brain will secrete dopamine when you do it. And after a while, your brain will do it on its own. And you're not gonna like throw rose petals in the air and run around, right? You're gonna feel this little lightening. And it really works. You have to do it for a while, though. You can't do it for 3 days and expect your brain to learn a new habit. But it really does work. The other thing that I want to sort of bring up is we tend to wait before asking for help. People who are experiencing really bad depression don't have the motivation to ask for help, or they don't feel that they deserve it. People who are anxious tend to wait a long time, much longer than they should, to ask for help. When symptoms persist, when they don't go away, and when they're constant, and when they cause you problems, ask for help. And it's really important to remember that it doesn't have to be a long-term commitment. It can be 1 or 2 sessions to move through some of this stuff and just to get you back on the right path. There's a lot of sliding scale and no fees and websites and so forth. Get evaluated. There's a lot you can do online through an app as well. And of course, I have to mention the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. It's handy to know about if you do need it. And I think it's something that I wish a couple of my friends had had in the past. So just to recap quickly, in your toolbox, think of this as like a marathon, not a sprint, right? An oratorio versus a single song for you guys. Figure out your priorities and issues and focus on those. Don't try to solve all your problems at once. It's not going to work. Figure out what's more important to you and do that. Really buddying up with somebody on things like setting a routine and holding yourself to a routine really helps. We know this from exercise, but we don't think about it in the way of actually holding yourself to routine and scheduling. Create a routine and schedule times for news and social media and worry. That is one of the things that you can do tomorrow that will lower your anxiety levels. Tricking your brain, behavioral activation. I included my contact information on the last slide of this. If you'd like more information on any of this stuff, feel free to email me. I'd be more than happy to help out. Schedule time for play, right? Create new neural pathways, find new stimulation sources, pick a novel source of stimulation, create new neural pathways that way, have sunlight, outdoor activities every day, and remember about exercise. And you can get through this. People are resilient, and it will end. So be well, everybody. And if you need any further information, my email is there, and I would welcome any questions you might have.
Awesome, Laura, Dr. Natta, thank you so much, and all of our
You're
amazing
quite welcome.
panelists today. I appreciate you giving up your time, Lori Marie and Kristina and Troy and Laura. You guys are fabulous. We had some technical difficulties and we went a little later than usual, but cheers to all of you. I want to just invite you next week as a reminder. We're having our last one of these for a little while. We're going to just take a little break through most of June, and we're going to be putting together our virtual conference that normally would have happened at ECHO, where we've got a great team on your CCDA board putting together a really fantastic, exciting virtual conference for us in late July. But next week, we're going to have one last webinar series, and it's going to be per your request, outbreak sessions. So 8 different sessions. We'll have all the links posted later this week, but we're having a 2-year college session, a 4-year university and college session. We're having music and worship. We're having community and professional choruses. We're having community children and youth. What else am I forgetting? High school, junior high, middle school, and vocal jazz. So I know many of you have asked for that. So we've put together a great team of 8 different folks who are going to lead a conversation in a virtual roundtable, and it'll be 8 different links. So make sure you click the right link next week, and we'll be back at 3 o'clock next Tuesday. I also, just for fun, we have 2 birthdays that I know of. I believe today is Peggy Spool's birthday of the Vivace Youth Chorus, and today is also Ken Abrams' birthday from the Bay Area. So I think we should all unmute and just holler out happy birthday just for fun. Can I unmute all of you?
Embrace the lag.
Embrace the lag. Shall we?
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday!
Yay.
Birthday!
Hey.
Love you all. It's wonderful to see you. Thank you, CCDA board, and all of your work on this, and our amazing presenters today, Laura, Lori Marie, and Kristina, and Trish Adams. A huge shout out to Trish, the executive administrator for many of our CASMIC organizations, who has been our virtual host all of these weeks. We love you, Trish. You're the best. Go have dinner and have a drink, everyone. Good night.
Happy
Happy birthday!
Thank you.